back to another wonderful world of the podcast that is Nerd for No Reason. Hello. Hi. That was a long break. Did you forget what the podcast was called? Not me. I could never. I'm your host. I'm Raven. I just woke up from a nap.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark, the other host of the Nerd for No Reason podcast.
I totally blinked.
You know, it happens to the best of us. You know, it happened to me a couple weeks ago when we just had dead air of like, Mark, are you going to close this out? And I'm like, I don't know. Turns out I had COVID.
I was going to say.
Maybe you got COVID, Raven.
Dude, I could hope for COVID, but I would not get it.
Get a couple days off from work and just sleep.
Dude, man, that's what I need. Just something to be like, oh, you don't have to work? We're going to pretend that this weekday is a vacation? That sounds nice. Anyways, how you been doing? What's up? How you doing,
Man,
Mark?
I don't know. I mean, just over here, just celebrating freedom. I say that America's in like just this wild state of absurdity right now.
What
I don't
even
even know if I'm just like, y'all celebrating freedom because of America. I'm like, how much is it going to cost for me to move to Thailand? Apparently it's real cheap there. Can I do the same thing I'm doing now, get paid the big bucks, and live in a foreign country without uprooting my entire family so much?
Man, I would love to just dip to another country. I think I would want to go to like Ireland or Scotland, to be honest. Those beautiful rolling green hills of farm life.
See,
Let me have it.
my only thing about going there is because I've lived over there before. Now, granted, it was 20 years ago, but apparently not much has changed in the fact that they don't have air conditioners. And that is a very big hang up for me because that was a huge issue of a huge kind of point of contention with me, because when it got like 85 degrees and air was just
stagnant
still
and hot. Ugh.
God, it was horrible.
Well, you know what's crazy? I'll go build my own house. I'll build my own AC unit in my own house. Thank you. And then people will come over and be like, yo, what is this? We could have had this the whole time. I'll be like, yeah, I live in like 68-degree weather year round. Thank you.
And I think the thing is that if you, I'm sure that nowadays, like if you buy a house or you buy a place over there, then you can probably put one of the like it's not a window unit, but like they have like the new thing now where you put the small unit AC unit in the individual rooms, and it would probably be fantastic because they both heat and cool.
Oh, nice.
You know, I don't know what the voltage would be like, but you know, so just because we're talking about it, I love Scotland. Scotland's one of my most absolute favorite places in the whole wide world. In Edinburgh, Scotland, right now, the high for the entire week. Just guess what the high is, Raven, for the entire week.
I know that for a while that they were having like a little thing where they were like, oh God, it's going to get like super hot. And I don't know if that time period has passed or not. So I don't know if it's actually hot or not. Can I just say 75? Or is it hot?
No, it's actually today is the highest it's going to be because there's no rain forecasted, but it is a scorching 67 degrees Fahrenheit today. Man. And is not scheduled to really get above 65 the whole rest of the week.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I can live in that.
Right. Yeah.
This stuff actually, over here, no. Yeah. It's been in the high 90s, and some of us have had AC issues with our vans this week, and that is not fun because, like, apparently so we had, like, a little pole built specifically where we park our vans, so it, like, shoots electricity, but apparently our breaker on it tripped at one point. And so me and one other girl like really struggled some this week because the breaker tripped our little sections of it. And yeah, it was like 90 something degrees outside, and those things turn into like little convection ovens. And I could not run my AC because if I did, my van would like shut off at some point. It was miserable. I was literally drenched in sweat one day. So yeah, I'll take their nice little 67 heat.
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
Yeah. But a lot of people forget that Scotland is really far up north, but the UK is kind of in this weird spot too, where I was expecting, because we are so far north. I mean, we're like Canada north, and a lot of people don't realize that. Um, that I was expecting a lot of snow when I was living over there.
Mm.
And where I lived, it only snowed once, maybe twice a year.
Oh, interesting.
And it's the way that the stream, the Gulf Stream, or not Gulf Stream, the just the way the jet stream, that's the word I was looking for, kind of goes across the island. If it shifts, because I want to say it was a year or two after I left, someone showed a picture of like, hey, this jet stream has done shifted, and now, this is what the UK looks like, and it was just entirely covered in snow.
Dang.
But I will say this: they are actually ready for it. It's not like the South when it snows once a year and everything shuts down. No, you're still driving. You're still driving. They salt the roads. They do all that. It's their infrastructure for that is surprisingly very good. And there are certain things about the UK that I do kind of miss. I do miss like the fact that each little village that you live in has like its own pub and its own little sense of community and all of this. And I'm sure it's probably way better now, but in the early 2000s when I lived there, their infrastructure for like current technology was horrid.
Well, yeah, but it was the early 2000s, so like,
Right, but I left like the panhandle of Florida having high speed internet and went back to dial up. And do you know how bad that was? Like literally the second house that I lived in had I moved there because it had DSN. Is it DSN, DSL internet? Anyway, it was high speed internet. And I was like, okay, this is the reason I'm moving in this house. And that was way better. And I don't even know if like cable internet or fiber internet is even a thing over there, because I don't live over there. I'm sure it is. I'm sure they've caught up. But that was probably like my biggest kind of issue of contention over there, that and the air conditioning. But I did enjoy like, oh man, you know what? I'm literally walking distance from a pub.
right?
I'm going to go there and hang out and meet the locals and hang out and, drink some beers and kind of be friendly and chit chatty and whatever. That was very cool. I do like the fact that if I need to send some mail to someone else in the country, it can get there in a day. Mail system's impeccable. The food, surprisingly good. British food's terrible, but all the other food there is great. And
You have to apologize to our British listeners now.
I'm not apologizing to them. I lived there. I lived in the trenches.
Oh,
Your food's terrible. You know it's terrible. You know how I know they know it's terrible? It's because their British dish, or their national dish, is not a British dish. Their national dish is an Indian dish. It's chicken curry. It's chicken jalfrezi to be specific. Okay?
they got beans on toast. What are you talking about?
You're right.
I would never eat that, though. Sorry to the British people.
Yeah. And I don't get their humor. I'm sorry. I really tried. I really genuinely tried to get their humor. Couldn't do it.
I feel like I definitely could probably get into it, but it's just because my brain is like that in between of like millennial and Gen Z, where I find the stupidest stuff hilarious. So they could probably say something, and even if I just feel uncomfortable enough at how they're laughing, I'd probably find it hilarious. Like that's my kind of humor, is like, Oh, this is making me uncomfortable. I think this is probably the greatest thing ever. uh, uh. So what'd you do for the 4th of July? Did you grill out?
Oh,
Did you
no, I
watch
honestly
some
didn't
stuff?
really even do that much. We went to we just set off fireworks. We had some fireworks, and it was honestly it was kind of short, quick, simple, to the point. We didn't even really go big. We got some just like the $35 party pack from Kroger,
Yeah.
and that was great. It was super fun. Um, and we usually I keep it kind of low key because everyone else around us is doing stuff, and it's usually super hot, and the dang old mosquitoes are eating us up,
Mm-hmm.
and this was probably the biggest I've done in years. Because and also fireworks like are really super duper expensive,
Right?
like dumb expensive. Um, I think it's probably been more than 10 years now since I've really gone and went and got some big fireworks. And they were, I mean, I spent like $350 back then. I can only imagine how much they are now.
Oh my God.
Um,
Yeah. No.
so, and then it's constantly running back and forth and trying to light it and stuff. And eh, just so much work. I'll let the neighbors go ahead and have their fun.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, you live in like a decent neighborhood that like enough people shooting them off could be like a good little show. Whereas my apartment complex, we're next to a tree line. We definitely cannot shoot off fireworks. We're not even allowed to have like grills on our patio. So
Oh, man.
I literally didn't see anything because there's just like there's one little neighborhood that's like a little bit, it's like across the street from us, but like I would have to walk out of my apartment and like kind of go walk down towards the street essentially to probably be able to see because the buildings are big enough here that I wouldn't be able to see anything. So I just kept hearing booms and I was just like, okay, I do really love fireworks, but like you said, I'm over mosquitoes and the gross sticky heat that leads to the nighttime. So no thanks.
Hmm.
Instead, I hung out with one of the girls that I work with. We went and saw Inside Out 2, and then we went and hung out at one of the local bars here. And afterwards, I came home and was like, okay, I have to start cleaning because we have Chris's mom and younger brother coming to visit us for the weekend. And I was like, I kind of don't want to do anything. And I knew that I was going to be awake for a little bit because I knew that it would probably freak out Kavik and Mudslide. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here on my phone. At like 9 p.m. is when I start cleaning carpet. And I've got like all the lights on downstairs. All three of the dogs are like intently watching me because Kavik's like, you can't leave a single room without me because I'm very scared of the loud boomies outside. And so I didn't go to sleep until like probably midnight. And then I think at some point Chris like came up, but Boo started like coughing a little bit. And so I was like, "Oh, come here." And then I realized it was like 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, "Cool. I'm going to go back to sleep." And then woke up at like 7 and was like, "Oh, I have 30 minutes to leave." So, yeah, that's how my 4th of July night to morning of the 4th of July went because I had to work the next morning. So I was just like, there's no point in me like wanting to go out and do fireworks because Chris is working and I didn't have anyone to hang out with. So I was just like, whatever, I'll hang out with my dogs. And we had a great time listening to podcast.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, you ready to talk about this week's movie?
Sure. Why don't we go ahead and get into it?
Word. This week's movie is 2018's cyber. Can we call it a cyberpunk? We'll call it a cyberpunk movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, Upgrade, starring Logan Marshall Green and a bunch of other people. I had actually seen this movie recently on one of my mini airplane trips. Raven, was this your first time watching this movie?
Yes, it was.
Word. Raven, why don't you tell me what you thought of Upgrade?
It was definitely an interesting movie, especially because I was like, I have no idea what I'm going into, especially after you and I had that little conversation where I was like, this isn't the movie that he's talking about, right? Which was like upgraded, and it was like some romance movie. And I was like, this isn't what Mark's talking about. So it's if you haven't seen the movie, it's like a weird little cyber movie where you start it off and you see some girl and basically like one of those stupid Tesla Cybertruck things. And I was like, all right, I already hate it. I hate how ugly this car is. And of course it kept popping in. But it was like definitely an interesting movie, and I was not expecting it to be so gory in some scenes, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we like talk about the breakdown of it, it'll probably be easier for me to like explain some of my thinking of like how I felt about this movie. What about you? As this will be your second time watching it,
Yep.
within like month and a half.
Yeah, probably about 6 weeks, I guess. Uh, this is. I had actually been wanting to see this movie for a very long time. Um, and just by happenstance, I did check it out on the plane. And I will say, this is a nice little fun action movie. Um, it is, you're right, there are parts of it where it's like really gory for kind of no reason. You're like, oh, ow,
Right?
what in the world? Um, and and then there's other parts where I'm like, I think we're getting a little bit too liberal with the powers and abilities that are portrayed in here. Uh, but we can kind of get into that a little bit later. But no, I thought it was a fun, kind of fine movie. I like the quote unquote twist at the end of the when everything's kind of going down in the last probably 10-15 minutes of the movie, and you're like, oh, okay, I see why everything happened in the movie. But it is, yeah, it's fun. I'm not upset that I watched it, again. I don't know. I think this might be one of those movies where now that I've seen it, especially so close to each other, um, better yet, let me put it this way. I don't think I gleaned anything extra by watching the movie a second time and like going, oh, was there something I missed? There really isn't. Once they put everything out on the table, you're like, yep, it's there. You
Mm,
know,
yeah.
so, and not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I enjoyed the experience. So, all right, but we can kind of go ahead and kind of get into it. I really enjoyed. There was little things that I really enjoyed about this movie. I thought it was a nice touch right at the very beginning where the robot lady voice was reading the credits. She's like, Legendary Pictures, an associate with Blumhouse Entertainment or whatever. I'm like, okay, you're setting a good tone here. I'm all right with this.
Dude, we started the movie off with a freaking Fast and Furious car fixer-upper. What's up?
Yeah, we did.
Was
And
not expecting that.
the first time I saw this, and a lot of this stuff, and I will say that a lot of this stuff is very kind of paint by numbers. They didn't break the mold per se, and I'm not upset by that. That's kind of a very important distinction, is that any time when I'm like, oh, they did this or they did this, I'm not necessarily upset that they made the choices they made, because I can already tell from like the first 5 minutes, like, oh, this is the guy who doesn't like all this cool fancy technology, which is weird because he grew up in it, so he should like it. It's not like I don't know. Anyway, but he's not down with all this fancy technology. He's going to end up with fancy technology and love it, and then something wild's going to happen. And when I see him working on that car, turning the random socket, just tightening something down, and then cranks it up, I'm like, oh yeah, he's going to lose an arm or something. Uh, and yeah, and then his wife showed up, and they have the absolute best marriage.
Right? Like they just seem like a nice little sweet couple. She's like, yeah, I wear the pants and I enjoy it. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't mind. Their house was cool. I like their little cyber house. It was interesting. It was a decent little like setup. It always cracks me up whenever they have like the tables though in like those futuristic type movies where they're just like we move our hands across everything and it all just works exactly how we want it to.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like knowing how we are today, it would absolutely like if your Wi-Fi was trash, you would just constantly be getting glitches.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
No, I liked uh once we it's kind of weird. The setup part of this movie is on paper is very kind of boring, where we're introduced to everything. You know, we're introduced to people, and he's like, "Oh, I got to do this," and it's kind of just again, it's kind of paint by numbers, but it's setting up everything until we get to kind of the crux of what's going to happen in this film. But when we get to what I will call Mark Zuckerberg's house, I can't remember the character's name.
I think his name is
Um,
Aaron. Am I wrong?
yes,
Okay.
yep, that's right, Aaron. When we get to Aaron's house, and all of this stuff is happening, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I work for this other company or whatever." I initially thought that I was like, "Oh, she's either sleeping with this dude or she is in the process of a company that's trying to take." Like I thought she was going to be the main kind of inciting person in this altercation that got him, with the chip in his brain. Because honestly, that's the one part of this movie where I was like, oh, she didn't have anything to do with what happened to them. She was just collateral damage. I thought for sure it was going to be like, oh, she was straight up for real going to be involved more than what she was. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
No. I get what you mean. Uh, yeah. When we got to like Aaron's house and it was like this cool little rock structure, and then you go under it and you're like, oh, this is really cool. And then you meet the most autistic person ever. Um,
Yeah.
And I'm saying that in like the best way possible because he's, super smart. And he's like, the part where she's like, oh, yeah, well, we basically like are trying to become your company. And he's like, yeah, but you won't.
Yeah.
That just cracked me up so hard. And he was like, and this is why. I just love the bluntness of it all. But like that little interaction, while I thought that she was totally cool, his little part felt weird. And then when you finally figure out why he felt so weird, it made sense. But I was just like, interesting, because you see him again in like a few other times, and he seems a little more like relaxed,
Yeah.
when he sees him at the hospital. But yeah, and then her little cyber car just the AI was taken over, and
Now
they
I
did a
put
flip over into the homeless encampment, which I'm sure if you were just like a bunch of homeless people, and then you're like just chilling at your little place, and then this expensive car just comes speeding at you. I cannot imagine how scary that would be. Of like,
yeah.
well, okay, sure. And then they just watched four guys try to assassinate a couple.
I
Scary.
will say that the Cybertruck or the automatic driving Cybertruck thing is legitimately one of my fears that I have with all this autonomous stuff that's going on.
Same.
Um, we joke and goof about AI here on the show, and I think AI is a great supplemental material, but also at the same time, I genuinely think if they ever took AI and put it out in the world untethered, this is legitimately what we're looking at, where they're like, oh no, it's great, and then all of a sudden they're like, nope, you gotta die. We did, it's mathematically better if you just die, so we're just gonna flip the car over.
Yeah.
um so it's yeah, watching this I'm like, oh no, this is exactly how I'm gonna go out in my 70s. I'm gonna be like, car stop, and I'm like, nope, can't.
This is going to be like the only way that like old people past the age of like 75 are allowed to drive, and it's still just going to like fuck up, and it's going to be
Oh
an old
yeah.
person wrecking. Anyways, so he like ends up in the hospital, and then you realize that he's like a paraplegic, and he is very clearly depressed. I can't blame him. He lost his wife, and then you lost all function of your limbs. But like the little part where the nurse or whoever is trying to like help him feel more comfortable of like how things get done. And she's like, yeah, you can just say protein shake. And he just sits there and he's like, yeah, I don't want to fucking do any of this.
Yeah.
That's the most realistic part of this movie.
I thought the same group of scenes. I think it was right after that where his mom was helping him trim his beard, and
Yeah.
he just starts crying. I'm like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
like, man, that sucks. You're such a good actor.
Right. Right. But then you see Aaron come back in and be like, hey, what's up? Sorry that all this shit's happened to you. You remember that little bug I showed you? It's crazy. I could test it on you if you wanted to. But like don't tell anyone. It's a super big secret. I just kept calling it the bug.
you know, I I completely forgot about this part, but when they're installing it and the little thing just starts crawling,
Yeah.
um,
It's just a bug.
yeah, I was like, oh, it's a full autonomous bug here.
I don't know if you noticed, but like the way that they positioned Gray's arm for his like surgery, it was like so sassy. Like they had it on his hip.
Oh, I didn't even see
It was
that.
so funny. I definitely
Oh
pointed it
God,
out to Chris
I
because I
have to
was
go
like,
back and see the sass now.
why did they have him positioned like that if it's just supposed to like be a spinal surgery? Anyways, just the things that I pay
He don't
attention
need to
to.
be that sassy.
But then he's like, oh yeah, it'll take a little bit of time. But my man was up and walking in like 30 seconds. And he's like, oh,
Yeah, and then they put him on a treadmill, and now he's an Avenger. It was
man
it
is
was wild.
legit Captain America.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They did this really cool thing, and I think this was the first instance they did it. Right after he got his chip in, and he walks into his house, um, they have this really cool camera work that they do, that they kind of these great tracking shots where Gray is fixed in the center of the frame, whether it be behind him or the side of him when he's fighting or something, and he's still, but everything else is moving around him.
Mm-hmm.
And man, they did really good cinematography work in this movie. It is it's hard to shoot action scenes in the first place, and I get that, but they did certain scenes where the camera is tracking Gray so good. I am like, holy crap! Like this is on a different level. And they keep doing this thing where he will stand straight up, like he'll lock his legs and just beep,
Yeah.
stand straight up. I want to know how they did that. I haven't looked it up on the internet yet, but I want to know how they did that, because that is impossible for humans to do. And I don't know if that's just good CGI or what, but kudos to you, sir.
Boy stood up
Uh,
like Dracula out of a coffin.
yeah, he did. And they always gave him that good sound effect every time he did that too.
Yeah. Uh, it did kind of crack me up when the cop started like suspecting Gray of like all this stuff. She's just like, it's really crazy that you ended up at a crime scene, even though you're a quadriplegic, and I know
Mm-hmm.
you can't do anything for yourself. That's really crazy. Just something about
Yeah.
like his interaction with her every single time where she's just like, I know you're up to something. I know you can do things. It's just like, oh, okay,
Oh
interesting.
yeah, she was on him.
Even though he's over there like straight up massacring people. Not that he wants to. He literally walked into a bar, was like, no, well, he didn't walk into a bar. His little wheelchair scooted at him, which this part was so funny, where he's literally like, can I get a bourbon neat or on ice? And then he just looks at the guy next to him and is like, hey, you hold that for me? That'd be so nice. And then he's just like, all right, if any of you guys know this guy, he killed my wife and I just want to talk to you. That whole scene was so funny. Uh,
that was so wild because of the uh I don't know. I really You know what? I feel like we're missing the gory part first. Like let's backtrack to the first
okay,
person
you're right.
he
Go
he
for
he
it.
revenged. Because all right, there's so much that where we start getting loosey goosey with the powers that we have, where he's like, oh hey, enhance the image, and it's just like 2 pixels spec, and he's like, oh, I clearly know what that is. Gray, give me a pencil, and he like
Dude,
dot matrix prints the barcode, and he's like, I know what that says. That's not how it works,
that was
my dude.
insane.
I like what they were trying to go for, but come on. And then he goes in there and they start fighting, and they was it a knife? Yeah, it was a knife, where he puts it in his mouth and basically cuts this dude's face open, Joker style.
Yeah,
My dude, what in the literal hell? Uh,
the
I
way he
think
was
that was.
dodging everything, like never
Oh
got
yeah,
hit once. Insanity.
yeah. And then by the time he gets to the bar, he starts getting cocky, and even Stem is like, "Don't get cocky," because he's like, "I didn't forget about you," and he's just whooping everybody's ass. Um, yeah, action scenes great, and then he slices dude's face up. You don't have to look; just put me in control, and you just hear just slicing and dicing as the dude's screaming. Uh,
Yeah, and then the bartender's out there like, man, that sucks to be that cripple guy.
right?
Just like assuming that it's Gray over there getting his ass handed to him, which also like, you just let 4 guys go into the bathroom to beat up some crippled man? That's a little shitty. But okay.
Well, you know, I,
Until
I, I
Gray just
don't,
comes
I
like
don't think
riding out and he's like, he said put it on their tab. What were you saying?
I was gonna say I don't think that bar was full of saints,
Full
as
of
it were.
distinguished gentlemen?
There you go.
What? In a bar that's black and
Off
covered
the
in
grid,
skulls? With some of
right?
the
Oh,
scariest people ever?
such a good aesthetic too. We're off the grid when we don't take e-cash, and you walk in and there's literal skulls and bones and stuff on the thing.
That's the kind of bar I'm looking for here in Knoxville.
I'm sure you could find it,
Can you
but you
imagine?
might.
It's like a local franchise, though.
Oh, that would be funny. Just a local franchise of just like,
The
we're the goth
scariest
bar,
thing
and you
ever.
walk in there and it's just a bunch of like, not calling you a hipster, but it's just a bunch of hipsters, but it's all decked out like a goth biker bar. That would be
I'd
hilarious.
be there so fast. I would, please, employ me. I want to see what goes on here every night. Thank you. Oh my
That would be
gosh.
funny.
But well, then the
Oh,
cop like comes back and she's like, "All right, you're doing it again. You were at another place." And he's like, "I mean, you can stab me if you want to. Like, I'm in a wheelchair." And she's just like,
right.
"I'll think about it." All right. They're just out there having funsies.
um, the and more where we start getting kind of uh what's the word, loosey goosey with the powers. This is the beginning of that, because when the bad guy, what we believe to be the main bad guy, Fisk, when Fisk shows up and he sneezes on the bartender, and we zoom in and see he has little micro robots,
Dude,
little
that was so good.
microorganisms.
With little like knives.
Right. Uh, that's really cool, but I feel like that's a little bit too overpowered. Like, why is this guy literally not in charge of absolutely everything? Like,
Because you know why.
this seems like he should be drunk with power, and you know, and I don't know if it's because people can shut him down remotely or what. We don't get any explanation on this, but it really seems, because in the next scene, when we go to the hacker's place, who I love, the hacker Jamie, by the way, she's great. I want a movie on her. I think that would be a really good, fun cyberpunk movie if we just follow Jamie around for 2 hours.
That can be good, yeah.
Um, but when they're leaving there, he can literally see through walls. So not only does he have uh, 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 digital corona, he can see through walls. The one dude is literally pumping shotgun shells into his arm. Like, there's a lot of really OP people, and I'm like, why are these guys just strictly not in charge? So,
Because the
yeah.
AI, Mark. For those that have not seen the movie, in the very end, you find out that the little STEM bug chip is the one that's actually in charge. So, like, can you imagine just being like, I'm afraid of this little piece of technology, but at somehow it can fully control your body. So maybe like that's the only reason that he's like, I gotta do what I gotta do. I can sneeze microplastics at you.
Not microplastics.
Not the
What about the turtles?
microplastics.
Uh, but uh, when everything's finally, when like the gig is up and we get back to Aaron's house and all of this craziness has happened, I did not see the movie ending with um we're gonna lock Gray in a mental prison and he's just gonna like pretend like he's living out the rest of his life,
With his
and
dead
now
wife.
Stim's in charge.
Yeah. As soon as he was like, I'm gonna kill myself, I was like, it's it's gonna be like he's in a virtual reality. In my head, I thought that somehow he would just be one of those people because he was like, I don't understand why these people would want to do that. And Jamie's like, well, outside world sucks, so why not just be in the virtual reality world for days upon days on end? And he was like, nah, it could never be me. And obviously that's where it ends up. Because
Yeah.
the part where he like wakes up because he thinks that she like grabbed him and she says that she printed pepperoni pizza. I was like, did she really just say that? That was wild. She over there using your little digital printer to make pepperoni pizza, but she can eat it. It's like Plankton and Karen. Have you seen
I
that
mean,
where like Karen will like from SpongeBob where she'll just put like little holograms
oh man,
down
I was
and
sitting there before
Plankton's
you
like
said from SpongeBob. I was so trying to figure out like what in the world are you talking about? What if Karen's done now with pepperoni?
Oh,
Are we canceling pepperoni?
God.
That's so funny to me. Uh, yes. The we're not too awfully far from 3D printing food. Um, we've done it in some instances, and people are like, "I could never eat that stuff." Yeah, you could. You absolutely could. If you didn't know any better, you would absolutely eat it.
All right, sir, tell me what is in your say something that a random food that most people love. Explain to me how they created your food. Go ahead. And he'll be like,
Right,
I don't know.
right. Tell me about your hot dogs.
Tell me about the Slim Jim that you're eating right now.
Right.
How's that going? Anyways, I thought that little like end twist where it's like his body's essentially on autopilot so that Stim can just use him was an interesting little thing. Now I'm even more scared of AI, to be honest. Sorry, Mark.
That's okay.
The AI
I get
war
it.
is upon us.
I get it. Um, was it just me, or did you think that the main character, Gray, looked like Tom Hardy?
Okay, I can see that a little bit.
There were parts of this movie where I'm like, they clearly wanted Tom Hardy, and they couldn't get him because he was filming Venom 2. So let's get this guy who looks like Tom Hardy. Not saying there's anything bad with this dude because he did. I think he did a bang up job, but there were parts where I'm like, this man looks like Tom Hardy in Venom,
Yeah,
where he's just constantly sweating and just looks haggard.
I don't think I knew a single like actor or actress in this movie, to be honest. Like I
Yeah,
didn't see anyone that I was like, oh yeah. And when you had asked me about this movie, I was like, I don't think I've even heard of this movie. So I was like, okay. I thought it was going to be like one of those like little lower budget ones, but this was actually really good for its,
yeah.
for
And as I was looking up the actors for this, kind of just doing research for this show, uh, the only place that I recognize Gray from, he's the only person I recognize, and I only realized this like once I looked it up. He was in the first MCU Spider-Man.
oh,
He was kind of an underling to the Michael Keaton Vulture. He played, he was one of his henchmen. And when I see his face, on IMDb, I'm like, oh, yes, he was that guy. Okay, I get it. Rock and
interesting.
roll.
Okay.
Uh, but other than that, I'm kind of with you. I'm like, I don't recognize anyone in this movie. But I think they all did a bang up job, man.
Yeah.
Like this was a fun, good. How long was this movie? Hour 45.
Yeah.
Quick in and out. You know, again, not upset that I watched it a second time in so many months. So yeah,
Nice. Good pick, Mark. You did it.
thank you. Um, all right, well, let's move on to our next part of the show where we talk about what has made us happy this week. We're thankful for the little things in life, big or small. I say little things and then I say big or small. You know what I'm talking about. Let's be thankful for some things. Raven, what has made you happy this week?
This week, like I said, on the 4th of July, I hung out with one of my coworkers, which was really nice. But I was also able to hang out with another friend of mine this week who she's been having to take care of her mom for, geez, I think it was like the end, maybe mid-May, that I really haven't been able to hang out with her. Uh, and so yeah, it was just really nice to like go out and hang out with a friend because moving to a city and then being like, I don't know anyone except for like the people I work with and then my aunt and uncle. But, sometimes you're just like, I like hanging out at my apartment all the time, but sometimes you want to get out. And Chris is working at night. So I was like, this is nice that I have someone, a few people that I can go hang out with. So yeah, I was just really happy to have that. How about you? What has made you happy this week?
Um, I've been spending a lot of time with the kids this week because Kelly's been sick, so they've been spending a whole lot of time at my house, and trying to keep the kids entertained is sometimes a difficult task. But we have gotten, I think it was last week, I can't remember if I talked about it on the show or not. We started playing Smash Bros. Here in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and Amy is apparently taken to the Smash Bros. Very quickly. She has grown exponentially in the past week and is consistently kicking my ass in Smash Bros. And it is super fun. Not getting my ass kicked because we're about on even playing ground now. I'm not saying like I'm really good, but we were playing yesterday, and I just woken up from a nap. And the second I woke up, she's like, "Dad, let's play Smash Bros. You said we can play Smash Bros." And I'm like, "Okay." And my heart wasn't in it, but Amy was kicking my ass hard. And she was just playing random characters. We went through, we did a tournament. Every character was random, and I just kept getting bad characters, and she was just match after match after match was just whooping me up. I'm like, oh man, and it's been kind of fun. She's kind of gassed up on herself, and no, it's just been super fun. We did a thing a couple nights ago where all three of us, me, Amy, and Alice, were all playing together, and we were just having the time of our life playing Smash Bros. So yeah, it was great. I can't
Nice.
wait to do it again sometime soon.
Oh, that's a good, like, father-daughter bonding time.
I mean, it was super fun, man.
Yeah,
Uh it's one of the hard things about being a parent is finding something you can bond with your kids over that everyone truly enjoys.
right?
You know, some people it's sports, but we can do sports and stuff, but a lot of sports when you're when your kids are young are kind of just like you go sit out in the hot sun while your kids do sports. And honestly, I don't get down on that. Um, and then once they kind of find their own interests and stuff, then it becomes even harder because they're doing their own thing. So for all three of us to sit in this house, and I don't know if this was a one shot or if this is something, that we'll sidestep into again and play, but just to have all three of us sitting there just talking trash and whooping and hollering and just being wild, it was super fun.
Nice. I love
So
that. You guys should do like Mario Party at some time. That's always a good one to have like
I
for
th-
multiple people.
I think when the new Mario Party comes out, we might get it.
Heck yeah.
I've been kind of holding off on getting Mario Party because I knew that there was a new one in the works somewhere, and I was like, I don't want to spend the money if they're not just going to make Mario Party kind of like Mario Kart is, where it's just let's just continue to add new maps. Because I don't want to go spend 60, $70 and then 2 years later, like, hey, let's go spend another 60, $70.
Yeah.
I'd much rather just have the updates come like, we'll give you some new maps and we'll do this and that. And that seems way more fun to me than spending money on a base game every couple of years.
Yeah. I get that.
So,
Well, nice.
all right. Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. Raven, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the internets?
On the internets, I am located on Instagram at That's So Raven Ellis or on the Twitter at super nope
Super?
super, yeah, I don't know, spooky underscore Raven. You know, I like to throw in random words in whatever I apparently sign up for online. And sometimes it's just super.
I feel like I have to look now and find like super underscore Raven dash Ellis or whatever it was.
Good God.
Super Raven.
Yeah, that's me. I'm actually just a superhero. My superhero is power is that I just can sleep. Try me. How about you, Mark? Where are you located?
So you can find me on all social medias at Turtles Do It. Hit me up, say what's up, and make sure you find the show everywhere: YouTube, Twitter, X,
No.
Instagram. We're still not calling it X.
No.
Find us everywhere at Nerd for No Reason. We love you. Thank you.
Don't forget
If you
to
want to,
like, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you listen.
yeah,
Do all that jazz
absolutely.
if you like us.
And if you guys want us to watch a movie, then hit us up. Shoot us a message. Let us know what you want us to watch, man. I promise you that we are always looking for new movies to watch. If we have not already watched it, we will absolutely watch it on this show.
I think there's a lot of movies we haven't watched, Mark.
I dare say there could be like 100 years worth of movies we have not watched.
Maybe there's only like 3 movies that we haven't watched on here, right?
Maybe 4.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
4.
That other one. I forgot about it.
Yes. It came out this year.
Shoot, gotta get on it.
We're dorks. All right, everybody, go and do something wonderful in the world today.
You guys go ingest all the coolest new medias, and we'll see you again next week on the Nerd for No Reason podcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Nerd for No Reason podcast. You can find us on all major social media platforms at Nerd for No Reason. Our podcast music is Memories in 8-Bit by Deanna Joan, aka Fergie's Human. You can follow her on Twitter at Deanna Joan Music and check out her other social media links in the show notes of our podcast.